So what do you make of what's happening? Let's put it in broad brushstrokes.
Welcome. Well, I think what you're seeing is we're trying to get back and tell our members that there's more confidence, more stability now that the extradition law is off the table. But these protests keep going on, and they concern us greatly because it could lead to more violence, and we're not in favor of that, of course.
Naturally, that's just it. But the thing is, this happens every year. You get this march, which takes place to mark every anniversary of the handover, as it were. Now, why should this year have particular focus? And I'm guessing it's because of what's preceded it. So are we expecting a huge crowd? What's the kind of official view of what's going on the streets?
Well, we don't have an official view.
I mean, what have you been hearing, I'm saying?
We've been hearing that there are going to be more protests, and that it's going to continue because while the extradition bill was shelved, paused, it hasn't been completely withdrawn, and that's what the people want. Whether that will happen or not, I don't know. Effectively, it has been withdrawn because it won't be introduced until the next session of LegCo. So for now, it's off the table.
Okay, but with that there at the time, it was almost like a Damocles sword, was it not? And the thing is that it showed how fragile and perhaps brittle trade with the US is in Hong Kong and what they're looking at here as well. What has been the general feedback you've had from the US companies operating in Hong Kong as a consequence?
So our members have been very concerned about what's going on in China and the trade war. We operate in ASEAN and China as well as in places like India. So we have a very broad remit. But we're very concerned about, we don't want this trade war to go on, but that's not going to end the situation. Our members are looking for a level playing field in China, restructuring of the Chinese economy, rule of law, stability, the investment law, if it comes down the pike, great. What is it going to look like? No one knows yet.
So how did they, in a place like Hong Kong, which you look after, prepare themselves for all this? And have they seen openings and reform moving in their direction gradually?
Well, do you mean in China?
Yes. But of course, they have to sit from here, from the Hong Kong perspective, because they're here to do business with China, naturally.
Right. We haven't really seen much yet. And I think our members that are doing business in China are going to stay in China. We're not really looking to move out from China, our membership. But of course, we would like things to change. And we're just waiting and seeing right now.
And what about the Hong Kong Policy Act as well? This is, of course, as we look at Washington looks at Hong Kong to see whether it's autonomous or not, and whether it fulfills that precondition.
So this is the sword of Damocles you were just talking about. I led a delegation to Washington a couple of weeks ago. We advocate every year on behalf of Hong Kong. I went to see the people on Senator Rubio's team, went to Senator Schumer's team. There are a number of bills being introduced to do away with the Hong Kong Policy Act. Because why? It has a special relationship with America. It allows Hong Kong to be in WTO, other international organizations, protection from tariffs. It's really a great thing for Hong Kong. And our policy, our position is don't do away with that. Don't throw Hong Kong under the China bus. Don't do anything that's going to damage the people or hurt the people of Hong Kong. We have 100,000 people employed by American companies in Hong Kong, 85,000 Americans here. We're stakeholders here. We don't want the U.S. government to do anything that's going to be precipitate and hurt the people of Hong Kong. So we say, first, do no harm. Make a statement. But we'd rather have more American officials come out to Hong Kong. We'd like to see more Hong Kong officials go to Beijing, but that doesn't seem to be happening.
And Washington, no doubt.
Exactly. I'm sorry, to Washington, I meant, yes.
Robert, so when you were on that visit, how has the political narrative with regard to China altered?
It's night and day from a year ago. There's now a hard narrative that China is the enemy in so many ways, and that Hong Kong is part of the problem. And we need to really, we want to refocus that. We say, look, business knows what to do. We can do business with China. We can do business in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a great entrepot. It's a great place for investment, for trade, for doing business. And it's good, it shares American values, and that's what we said in Washington.
So as that dialogue and that whole feeling, I suppose, has changed, and you're there to advocate on behalf of Hong Kong, how do you ameliorate that?
Well,
I mean, apart from just talking, of course, and making and advocating, as you've been saying.
Well, we want to work with the Hong Kong government to restore confidence where we can. We want high-level American officials to come out. They've started to come out. We want to create a dialogue between Washington and Hong Kong, as well as with Beijing.
And Robert, of course, over the weekend we had the G20 and moves there, a trade truce, as it were, now, and that must be taking the heat out of the whole thing a little bit, for the time being.
A little bit. I mean, trust but verify. It's great that things seem to be moving in the right direction. The devil is in the details. We'll just have to see.